Jasmine Crockett had always been someone who wasn't afraid to speak her mind. From the moment she stepped into Congress, people noticed her. She was bold, sharp, and unapologetic about calling out what she believed was wrong. Her rise to fame wasn't just because of her fiery speeches. It was also because she seemed to genuinely care about holding powerful people accountable. Whether it was big corporations or tech billionaires, Jasmine didn't shy away from challenging anyone she thought was abusing their power. Her favorite target? Tech giants. And among them, no one caught her attention more than Elon Musk. 2. Jasmine Musk wasn't just another billionaire. He represented everything she disliked about unchecked corporate influence. He owned companies that were reshaping entire industries. Rockets flying to space, electric cars revolutionizing transportation, brain implants exploring human potential, and even a social media platform with millions of users. But instead of seeing him as an innovator, Jasmine saw him as a threat, a man whose ambitions might come at the cost of public safety and democracy itself. She wasn't alone in this belief. Many lawmakers shared her concerns, but Jasmine stood out because of how passionately she voiced them. During debates, she would often point fingers directly at Musk, accusing him of spreading misinformation, ignoring worker rights, and monopolizing markets. Her words resonated with many Americans who felt uneasy about the growing power of figures like Musk. For Jasmine, these accusations weren't personal. They were part of her mission to protect ordinary citizens from the excesses of the ultra-rich. But while Jasmine gained popularity for her stance, there was another side to the story. Elon Musk wasn't your typical billionaire. Unlike some corporate leaders who stayed behind closed doors, Musk thrived in the spotlight. He embraced controversy, often engaging directly with critics on social media. His unconventional approach made him both loved and hated by millions around the world. Some admired his vision for the future, while others dismissed him as reckless or self-serving. Either way, he couldn't be ignored. As tensions between Jasmine and Musk grew, so did the stakes. The turning point came when Congress announced hearings to investigate allegations against Musk's social media platform, X, formerly known as Twitter. Lawmakers wanted answers about claims that the platform was suppressing free speech, favoring certain political ideologies, and failing to address harmful content. For Jasmine, this was her chance to shine, to prove once and for all that Musk needed to be reined in. Preparation consumed her days. She spent hours poring over documents, consulting experts, and crafting questions designed to corner Musk during the hearing. She knew he wouldn't go down without a fight, but she was confident in her strategy. After all, she had faced tough opponents before, and she'd always managed to hold her ground. This time, however, something felt different. There was a buzz in the air, an unspoken sense that this showdown would define careers, not just hers, but perhaps Musk's too. The day of the hearing arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Cameras lined the walls of the congressional chamber, capturing every detail for viewers watching live. Reporters whispered excitedly outside, speculating about what might unfold. Inside, lawmakers took their seats, ready to grill one of the most polarizing figures of the modern era. And then Elon Musk walked in. He looked relaxed, almost casual, wearing his signature black jacket and jeans. Despite the gravity of the situation, he carried himself with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. Jasmine watched him closely, her eyes narrowing slightly. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her head. She knew exactly where to hit hardest: his business practices, his leadership style, and his alleged disregard for ethical standards. As the hearing began, she leaned forward, ready to strike. For the first hour, Jasmine dominated the conversation. She fired off question after question, each one sharper than the last. She accused Musk of manipulating algorithms to silence dissenting voices, exploiting workers in his factories, and prioritizing profits over public good. At first, Musk responded calmly, deflecting her attacks with vague answers and technical explanations. But Jasmine pressed on, refusing to let him off the hook. She cited statistics, quoted whistleblowers, and referenced internal documents, all intended to paint him as a villain. And yet, something strange happened. Instead of crumbling under pressure, Musk began to push back. Slowly, but surely, he started, dismantling Jasmine's arguments piece by piece. He pointed out flaws in her logic, challenged the accuracy of her data, and presented counterexamples that contradicted her narrative. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but soon it became clear. Musk wasn't just defending himself, he was turning the tables. Jasmine hesitated, thrown off balance by his unexpected counterattack. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. She glanced at her notes, searching for a lifeline, but found none. Musk seized the opportunity, launching into a detailed explanation of how his platform operated. He talked about transparency measures, user feedback loops, and efforts to combat misinformation. Each word he spoke sounded calculated, precise, and devastatingly effective. By the time the session ended, the room was eerily quiet. Jasmine sat frozen in her chair, her earlier bravado replaced by a mixture of frustration and disbelief. Musk, on the other hand, exuded satisfaction. He had entered the lion's den and emerged unscathed. Not only that, but he had arguably come out stronger. The audience, both in the room and online, couldn't stop talking about what they had just witnessed. Little did Jasmine know, this was only the beginning. The fallout from the hearing would ripple far beyond the walls of Congress, shaping not just her career, but also the broader debate about power, accountability, and the role of technology in society. For now, though, she could only sit there, grappling with the realization that she had underestimated her opponent, and that mistake might cost her dearly. The hearing room buzzed with anticipation as the clock struck 10 in the morning. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes furiously, and spectators filled every available seat, eager to witness what promised to be a clash of titans. Jasmine Crockett sat at the center of the long, polished table, her posture straight and her expression resolute. Across from her, Elon Musk adjusted his chair slightly, his demeanor calm but alert. The air was thick with tension, and everyone knew this wasn't just another congressional hearing, it was a high-stakes battle of wits. As the session began, Jasmine wasted no time diving into her prepared remarks. Her voice carried authority as she addressed the committee and the audience. "Mr. Musk," she began, her tone firm but measured, "you have built an empire that touches nearly every aspect of modern life, from transportation to space exploration to communication. But with great power comes great responsibility, and we are here today to examine whether you've lived up to that responsibility." Her opening statement set the tone for what followed, a relentless barrage of questions aimed squarely at Musk's business practices. She started with accusations about misinformation on X, the social media platform he had recently acquired and rebranded. "Your platform has been criticized for allowing harmful content to spread unchecked," she said, leaning forward slightly to emphasize her point. "How do you justify prioritizing profits over public safety?" Musk listened intently, his face unreadable. When it was his turn to respond, he spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "I understand the concerns," he said, his voice steady. "But I think it's important to clarify something. Our goal isn't to suppress or amplify any particular viewpoint. It's to create a space where free expression can thrive." He went on to explain how algorithms worked, citing examples of improvements made under his leadership. For a moment, it seemed like he might successfully deflect Jasmine's attack, but Jasmine wasn't done yet. She shifted gears, moving on to labor practices within Musk's companies. "Reports suggest that workers at your factories are subjected to grueling conditions," she stated, holding up a document for emphasis. "Some have even described them as unsafe and exploitative. What steps are you taking to ensure their well-being?" Her question hung in the air, sharp and pointed. Musk paused briefly before responding. "Safety is our top priority," he replied. "We invest heavily in training programs and technology to protect our workforce. That said, building rockets and electric vehicles is inherently challenging work. We're constantly striving to strike a balance between innovation and employee welfare." Jasmine nodded, though her expression remained skeptical. She pressed further, asking for specifics about reported injuries and complaints filed by workers. Musk answered each query methodically, providing data and context to counter her claims. While his responses were factual, they lacked the emotional weight Jasmine brought to the table. She leaned into this advantage, painting him as detached and indifferent to human suffering. For nearly an hour, the dynamic remained consistent. Jasmine attacked, and Musk defended. The audience watched intently, some nodding along with her arguments, others visibly impressed by his composure. Just when it seemed like the hearing might become predictable, however, things took a dramatic turn. Jasmine decided to raise the stakes. She pulled out a chart showing alleged instances of censorship on X, claiming that certain political groups had been disproportionately targeted. "Isn't it true," she asked, her voice rising slightly, "that your platform has silenced conservative voices while amplifying progressive ones? Isn't this evidence of bias?" This was the moment Musk had been waiting for. Instead of simply denying the accusation, he leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Jasmine's. "Let me address this directly," he said, his tone shifting ever so slightly. "First, I want to thank you for bringing this up because it gives me an opportunity to clear the air. The reality is, our moderation policies are applied equally across all ideologies. If anything, critics from both sides accuse us of favoring the other. So if there's bias, it's not intentional, it's perceived." He then proceeded to dismantle her argument step by step. He referenced case studies, cited independent audits, and highlighted user feedback surveys, all of which contradicted Jasmine's narrative. More importantly, he exposed inconsistencies in her own presentation. "If you look closely at the chart you're referencing," he said, pointing to a specific section, "you'll notice that the numbers don't add up. They're cherry-picked to support a predetermined conclusion, and frankly, that undermines the credibility of your entire argument." The room fell silent. Jasmine blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She hadn't expected him to scrutinize her evidence so thoroughly. For the first time since the hearing began, her confidence wavered. She glanced down at her notes, searching for a way to regain control of the narrative. But Musk wasn't finished. He continued, his tone now tinged with a hint of frustration. "Look, I respect your passion for accountability, Congresswoman. But if we're going to have meaningful discussions about these issues, we need to base them on facts, not assumptions or selective data." His words landed like a punch, leaving Jasmine scrambling to recover. Realizing she needed to pivot, Jasmine tried shifting the focus back to broader themes. "At the end of the day," she said, attempting to regain her footing, "this isn't just about numbers or charts. It's about trust. Can the American people trust you to act in their best interests? Or are you more concerned with expanding your influence and wealth?" It was a clever move, designed to appeal to emotions rather than logic. But Musk was ready. "Trust is earned through actions, not words," he countered. "And if you look at my track record, whether it's reducing carbon emissions with Tesla, advancing space exploration with SpaceX, or promoting free speech with X, you'll see that my actions speak louder than any rhetoric." The exchange went on like this for several more minutes, with Jasmine struggling to regain momentum, and Musk steadily dismantling her arguments. By the time the session concluded, the contrast between the two couldn't have been clearer. Where Jasmine had started strong, she ended looking uncertain and defensive. Musk, on the other hand, exuded confidence, having turned what could have been a PR disaster into a masterclass in strategic communication. Outside the hearing room, reactions poured in almost immediately. Social media lit up with clips of the confrontation, many of them highlighting Musk's sharp rebuttals. Pundits weighed in, praising his preparation and poise, while criticizing Jasmine for overplaying her hand. Supporters of both sides debated endlessly, turning the hearing into a national talking point. For Jasmine, the aftermath was sobering. As she packed up her materials and prepared to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had underestimated her opponent. What had started as a mission to hold Musk accountable had instead become a lesson in humility. For Musk, the victory was bittersweet. While he had successfully defended himself, he couldn't ignore the toll such confrontations took, not just on him, but on those caught in the crossfire. Little did either of them know, the real consequences of this showdown were only beginning to unfold. The ripple effects would extend far beyond the walls of Congress, shaping careers, reputations, and the larger conversation about power and accountability in the digital age. The aftermath of the congressional hearing spread like wildfire. Clips of Jasmine Crockett's confrontation with Elon Musk dominated social media feeds, news outlets, and late-night talk shows. But instead of showcasing her as a fearless crusader for justice, the narrative quickly turned against her. Memes mocking her flustered demeanor flooded platforms like X, formerly Twitter, while commentators dissected every misstep she made during the hearing. What was supposed to be a defining moment in her career had become a public relations disaster. For Jasmine, the days following the hearing were a blur of embarrassment and frustration. She woke up each morning to notifications pinging on her phone, most of them critical tweets, scathing op-eds, or viral videos highlighting her stumbles under Musk's relentless counterattacks. One particularly brutal clip showed her fumbling through her notes after Musk pointed out inconsistencies in her data. Another replayed his calm yet cutting remark about trust being earned through actions, not assumptions. These moments, once fleeting, now loomed large over her reputation. As the backlash intensified, Jasmine found herself increasingly isolated. Allies who once praised her courage began distancing themselves, wary of being associated with what many viewed as an ill-prepared and overly aggressive performance. Even within her own party, whispers grew louder. Some colleagues suggested that she lacked the depth needed to tackle complex issues involving technology and corporate accountability. Others questioned whether her approach, focused more on theatrics than substance, had done more harm than good. Meanwhile, Elon Musk seized the opportunity to solidify his image as a champion of innovation and free expression. In interviews and posts on X, he framed the hearing as yet another example of bureaucratic overreach attempting to stifle progress. "They don't understand the work we're doing," he tweeted, garnering millions of likes. "But I'll keep fighting for a future where ideas can flow freely." His supporters rallied behind him, praising his ability to stand firm against criticism and defend his vision. Public opinion shifted dramatically in Musk's favor. Polls showed that a majority of Americans believed he handled the hearing well, even if they didn't agree with all of his business practices. Critics who had once dismissed him as reckless now grudgingly admitted that he was a formidable opponent, one who could hold his own in any arena. The hearing became a rallying cry for his fans, who saw it as proof that Musk wasn't afraid to challenge the establishment. For Jasmine, the humiliation was compounded by the realization that she had underestimated Musk's preparation and intelligence. She had walked into the hearing expecting to dominate the conversation, armed with accusations and charts. What she hadn't anticipated was how thoroughly Musk would dismantle her arguments, exposing gaps in her knowledge and inconsistencies in her evidence. It was a painful lesson in humility, one that forced her to confront the limits of her expertise. Behind closed doors, Jasmine faced mounting pressure. Calls for accountability grew louder, with some demanding that she step down from key committee roles or even resign altogether. Anonymous sources within Congress leaked stories to the press, painting her as reckless and unprepared. Her staff worked tirelessly to manage the fallout, issuing statements, scheduling damage control interviews, and urging her to take a temporary step back from the spotlight. But no matter what they did, the narrative refused to shift. In an attempt to regain control of the situation, Jasmine appeared on several news programs to address the controversy. Sitting across from seasoned anchors, she apologized for any perceived missteps but insisted that her intentions were noble. "I went into that hearing wanting to hold someone accountable for actions that affect millions of people," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "Maybe I could have been better prepared, but my heart was in the right place." Her apology fell flat with many viewers. Instead of seeing sincerity, critics accused her of deflecting responsibility and playing the victim. Pundits dissected her words, pointing out contradictions between her statements and her behavior during the hearing. The harder she tried to salvage her image, the deeper the hole seemed to get. Amidst the chaos, Jasmine retreated from public view, seeking solace in quiet reflection. She spent hours poring over transcripts of the hearing, analyzing where things had gone wrong. Slowly, painfully, she began to piece together the lessons she had learned. She realized that taking on someone like Musk required more than passion. It demanded expertise, patience, and an understanding of the nuances involved. She had underestimated her opponent, and it had cost her dearly. Despite the overwhelming negativity, there were glimmers of hope. A small group of loyal supporters stood by her side, reminding her of the importance of perseverance. Friends sent messages of encouragement, urging her not to let one setback define her legacy. And though she felt defeated, Jasmine couldn't shake the belief that she still had something valuable to contribute to her community, to her country, and to the causes she cared about deeply. As weeks passed, the initial frenzy surrounding the hearing began to die down. While Jasmine remained a polarizing figure, the constant barrage of criticism eased slightly. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to breathe. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding trust would take time, effort, and a willingness to adapt. But she also knew that failure wasn't final. It was merely a stepping stone on the path to growth. Elon Musk, on the other hand, continued to thrive. The hearing had elevated his status as a disruptor. Willing to challenge the status quo, he used the momentum to push forward with ambitious projects, from expanding satellite internet access in remote areas to advancing research in artificial intelligence. Yet, beneath the surface, he occasionally reflected on the human cost of such confrontations. While he celebrated his victory, he couldn't ignore the toll it had taken on someone like Jasmine, a reminder that power dynamics often came at a price. For both Jasmine and Musk, the hearing marked a turning point. It exposed vulnerabilities, tested resilience, and reshaped trajectories. As they moved forward, each carried the weight of the experience, the scars of battle, and the lessons learned. Whether they emerged stronger or weaker depended not on the outcome of the hearing itself, but on how they chose to respond in its wake. Weeks turned into months, and the dust from the congressional hearing began to settle. The initial frenzy of memes, headlines, and hot takes had faded, leaving behind a quieter but equally significant aftermath. For Jasmine Crockett, the road to recovery was long and fraught with challenges. Yet in the quiet moments of reflection, she started to see glimpses of hope, and perhaps even redemption. At first, stepping away from the spotlight felt like a punishment. Jasmine avoided public appearances, declined interview requests, and focused on rebuilding her life behind the scenes. She spent hours in her office poring over policy papers, legal briefs, and reports about technology and corporate accountability. It wasn't glamorous work, but it gave her a sense of purpose, a chance to fill the gaps in her knowledge that had been so glaringly exposed during the hearing. She realized that if she wanted to continue fighting for justice, she needed to do it smarter, not louder. Her staff noticed the change almost immediately. Gone was the fiery rhetoric that had defined her early career. In its place was a more measured, thoughtful approach. She asked tough questions, sought input from experts, and listened intently to opposing viewpoints. Slowly but surely, she began to rebuild trust, not just with her colleagues in Congress but also with the constituents who had once cheered her on. One of the most pivotal moments came when she attended a town hall meeting in her district. It was a small gathering, held in a community center rather than a grand auditorium. People were skeptical at first, unsure whether they could still believe in her after the fallout from the hearing. But as Jasmine spoke, something remarkable happened. Instead of grandstanding or making bold promises, she admitted her mistakes. "I let you down," she said, her voice steady, but tinged with emotion. "I thought I was ready to take on one of the biggest challenges of our time, but I wasn't. I'm working every day to learn from that experience and do better." The room fell silent. No one had expected such vulnerability from someone known for their unshakable confidence. One by one, people began to applaud, not because they agreed with everything she said, but because they respected her honesty. That night marked the beginning of her journey toward redemption. While she knew she couldn't erase the past, she could show the world that she was willing to grow. Meanwhile, Elon Musk continued to dominate headlines, but not without facing his own share of controversies. His victory over Jasmine had solidified his reputation as a formidable opponent, but it hadn't shielded him from criticism. Activists accused him of using the hearing as a platform to deflect attention from ongoing issues within his companies. Workers' rights advocates renewed calls for investigations into labor practices, while environmental groups questioned the sustainability of his ambitious projects. Even some of his supporters grew uneasy, wondering whether his relentless pursuit of progress came at too high a cost. Despite these challenges, Musk remained undeterred. He thrived under pressure, channeling the energy from his critics into fuel for innovation. In interviews, he often referenced the hearing, framing it as proof that he wouldn't back down in the face of adversity. "Some people think I'm reckless," he said during a podcast appearance, "but I don't build rockets or cars or anything else just to make money. I do it because I believe we can create a better future. And if that means ruffling a few feathers along the way, so be it." His words resonated with millions around the world, many of whom admired his determination to push boundaries. Yet, there were moments when Musk paused to reflect on the human side of his battles. He occasionally thought about Jasmine, wondering what the hearing had cost her personally. While he didn't regret defending himself, he recognized that victories in the public arena often came with collateral damage. "She's a smart person," he told a close friend during a rare moment of introspection. "If she learns from this, she'll come back stronger." As both Jasmine and Musk navigated their respective paths, the broader implications of the hearing became clearer. The clash between them had sparked important conversations about power, accountability, and the role of technology in shaping society. Lawmakers began drafting new regulations aimed at holding tech giants accountable, while activists pushed for greater transparency in how platforms like X operated. Even ordinary citizens joined the dialogue, debating whether figures like Musk should be celebrated as innovators or scrutinized as potential threats to democracy. For Jasmine, this shift represented an opportunity to refocus her efforts. Rather than trying to take on Musk directly again, she decided to channel her energy into grassroots advocacy. She partnered with local organizations to educate communities about digital literacy, privacy rights, and the impact of social media on mental health. These initiatives may not have garnered the same level of attention as her previous confrontations, but they allowed her to make a tangible difference in people's lives. Her newfound humility earned her respect from unexpected quarters. Former critics praised her willingness to adapt, while allies applauded her resilience. Though she never fully regained the national prominence she once enjoyed, she found fulfillment in quieter, more meaningful work. "Maybe I wasn't cut out to be the face of a movement," she confided to a friend one evening. "But that doesn't mean I can't contribute in other ways." Elon Musk, too, evolved in subtle ways. While he remained committed to his vision of the future, he became slightly more cautious about engaging in public disputes. He understood that every battle carried risks, not just for him, but for those caught in the crossfire. When controversies arose, he sometimes chose diplomacy over defiance, opting to address concerns constructively rather than dismissively. This shift didn't go unnoticed. Even his harshest detractors acknowledged that he seemed to be maturing as a leader. By the end of the year, the story of Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk had taken on a life of its own. It was no longer just about two individuals clashing in a congressional hearing. It was about the lessons they learned and the legacies they built in its wake. For Jasmine, it was a tale of resilience and reinvention. For Musk, it was a testament to the enduring power of ambition tempered by self-awareness. As the world moved forward, both figures continued to shape the narrative in their own ways. Jasmine worked tirelessly to empower others, proving that failure wasn't final. It was simply part of the journey. Musk forged ahead with his groundbreaking projects, reminding everyone that progress required courage, conviction, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. Together, their stories served as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, growth was always possible, if you were brave enough to embrace it. As the months stretched into years, the ripple effects of that fateful congressional hearing continued to shape Jasmine Crockett's and Elon Musk's lives, and in many ways, the broader landscape of politics, technology, and public discourse. What had started as a clash between two powerful personalities evolved into a story about resilience, growth, and the complexities of wielding influence in an ever-changing world. For Jasmine, the journey toward redemption was neither quick nor easy. Her decision to step away from the national stage and focus on grassroots advocacy proved to be a turning point, though it came with its own set of challenges. At first, critics dismissed her new approach as a retreat, a sign that she couldn't handle the pressure of high-profile confrontations. But over time, her efforts began to yield results. By working closely with local organizations, she helped create programs aimed at educating communities about digital literacy, online safety, and the ethical use of emerging technologies. These initiatives may not have made headlines, but they touched countless lives, earning her quiet respect from those who mattered most, the people she served. One particularly impactful project involved partnering with schools to teach students how to navigate social media responsibly. Jasmine organized workshops where kids learned to identify misinformation, protect their privacy, and engage in constructive conversations online. Teachers and parents praised the program, noting that it empowered young people to think critically about the content they consumed and shared. For Jasmine, these moments were deeply fulfilling. "This is where real change happens," she often said. "Not in front of cameras or during heated debates, but in classrooms and community centers." Her transformation didn't go unnoticed. Journalists who had once criticized her began writing profiles highlighting her evolution from a polarizing figure to a thoughtful advocate. Some even credited her for showing humility, a rare trait in today's hyper-partisan political climate. While she never fully escaped the shadow of the infamous hearing, she managed to redefine herself, not as someone seeking glory, but as someone committed to making a difference, no matter how small. Elon Musk, meanwhile, continued to push boundaries and redefine industries. The hearing had only strengthened his resolve to pursue his vision of the future, though it also forced him to reflect on the responsibilities that came with his immense power. He became more deliberate in addressing criticisms, engaging with stakeholders, and ensuring that his companies operated transparently. This wasn't always smooth sailing. Controversies still erupted, and detractors remained vocal, but there was a noticeable shift in his leadership style. He seemed less combative and more willing to listen, recognizing that collaboration could sometimes achieve more than confrontation. One of his most significant achievements during this period was the expansion of satellite internet services to underserved regions around the globe. Through SpaceX's Starlink program, millions of people gained access to reliable connectivity for the first time, transforming education, healthcare, and economic opportunities in remote areas. Critics argued that the initiative was motivated by profit, but few could deny its positive impact. Musk himself acknowledged the dual nature of his work. "I'm not doing this out of charity," he admitted in an interview. "But if solving problems makes money while improving lives, why shouldn't we aim for both?" Despite their differing paths, Jasmine and Musk occasionally crossed paths in the public eye. During a tech summit in Silicon Valley, they found themselves seated across from each other at a panel discussion. The moderator introduced them awkwardly, referencing the infamous hearing, but both handled the situation with grace. Jasmine spoke candidly about her experiences, acknowledging her mistakes and emphasizing the importance of learning from failure. Musk, for his part, praised her resilience and expressed admiration for her dedication to grassroots advocacy. Their exchange drew applause from the audience, signaling a mutual respect that hadn't existed before. The legacy of their confrontation extended far beyond their individual careers. The hearing had sparked widespread conversations about the role of technology in society, the balance between innovation and regulation, and the need for accountability in positions of power. Lawmakers introduced legislation aimed at curbing monopolistic practices and ensuring transparency in social media algorithms. Activists launched campaigns to hold corporations accountable for their environmental and labor practices. Even every day, citizens became more aware of the impact of technology on their lives, demanding greater oversight and ethical standards. In some ways, the hearing had acted as a catalyst for change, forcing both sides of the debate to reevaluate their approaches. For lawmakers like Jasmine, it underscored the importance of preparation, expertise, and empathy when tackling complex issues. For innovators like Musk, it highlighted the necessity of humility, responsibility, and engagement with critics. Neither side emerged unscathed, but both grew stronger because of the experience. Years later, when asked to reflect on the incident, Jasmine described it as a defining moment in her life, not because of what she achieved, but because of what she learned. "That hearing taught me that you can't fight ignorance with arrogance," she said. "You have to meet people where they are, listen to their concerns, and find common ground. It's not always easy, but it's worth it." Musk echoed similar sentiments, albeit in his characteristic style. "People thought I won that day," he remarked during a fireside chat. "But the truth is, nobody really wins in those situations. What matters is what you do afterward, how you grow, adapt, and keep moving forward." Their stories served as reminders of the human side of ambition and conflict. They showed that even in moments of triumph or defeat, there is always room for growth. And while their paths diverged significantly after the hearing, their shared experience left an indelible mark on the world, one that would continue to inspire, challenge, and provoke thought for generations to come. In the end, the tale of Jasmine Crockett and Elon Musk wasn't just about a single event or rivalry. It was about the enduring themes of accountability, resilience, and the pursuit of progress. It reminded everyone that power, whether wielded by politicians or entrepreneurs, carries weight, and that the choices we make in its name shape not only our own destinies, but also the future of those around us.